their brilliant new records. But this week is slightly different. So we're getting into it with Rich Clarke, who is head of music and works in the fundraising team for War Child, an incredible organisation working to protect, educate, and stand up for the rights of children living through conflict around the world. We're going to be delving into the brand new compilation record entitled Help 2, recorded across one special week in November 2025 with musicians including everyone from Arctic Monkeys, Olivia Rodrigo, Arlo Parks, some ex-Record Club attendees, Ezra Collective, Nilofer Yanya, English Teacher, and loads more, actually, all on one record in support of War Child's cause. We'll still be putting forward some of your questions about the album for Rich to answer. So if you want to get involved, drop us a question in the comments section and I'll be asking a selection of them in the second half of our chat. And on top of that, make sure to get your questions to us because someone will be randomly selected today to win a pair of Bowers Wilkins PX7 Season 2 over-ear noise-cancelling headphones, which I'm modelling for you now. So yeah, don't miss out. Get those questions to us and we'll be asking Rich in the second half. If you haven't already got yourself a copy of the album, we thoroughly recommend you do so. Order one from your local record store and support the cause. But first, let's get straight into this week's Record Club and say a big hello to Rich. How are we doing?
I'm doing great, Jess. Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to join you and talk about this really special record.
I can't believe it's such a huge project. I think it's just under 1.5 hours, but I mean, all killer, no filler, some incredible names that we've already mentioned. And yeah, I'm really excited to get into it. But we're going to start, as we always do, with one of the many amazing independent record stores in the UK sending us a question. So this week it comes from Empire Records in St. Albans, and they've got a good question. They've stolen one of mine. Was there any criteria or theme for the artists when coming up with their contributions for the album?
That's a great question. There was, I mean, one thing. So the process was James Ford curated this record. You know, it's very much his creative vision. And one thing we all, when we sat down right at the start, was we have to make sure the creative bar stays really, really high, because people can gravitate to things, and there can be a tendency, that you might find a B-side that was never used or that comes, or a remix. But we really, really wanted to impress on artists that we need, we need you to come to this with the kind of mindset of donating your best work. And we're delighted that's what happened. I think you were right, 23 tracks. It's a long record. It's an amazing record, but you don't get much change out of it. And it takes you on a wonderful journey. But I do feel like every track is absolutely every artist coming with their A game. So yeah, and there's some songs on there that do lean into a kind of conflict theme. Bat for Lashes wrote her track specifically about children in conflict. The Foals track is one that Yanis had started years ago in response to a conflict about 6 years ago and hadn't quite found a way to finish it. But the kind of, the Pulp track is one James had started on the sessions for More last year. And Jarvis hadn't quite found the vocal, and this kind of begging for change, kind of resonating with the charity and the situation, we're facing with children affected by conflict, allowed him to finish it. But if you had a track, an album of 23 tracks that were all about conflict and how that affects children, and I don't think anyone could get to the end. So it's a nice, like, there's some themes in there that carry that, and it finishes with Olivia Rodrigo and this sort of, leaving you on the redemptive power of love, which is, a wonderful way to finish it. So there wasn't like a creative to write a specific way. It was really just bring your best song.
I kind of want to delve a little bit more into that though, because I feel like there's always, when you come up with the idea like this, I've done some projects before where multiple artists are involved, and you have to be quite clear in, like, I guess you must have set out exactly what it is. So obviously it's to do with War Child and an amazing cause, but creatively, were you like, oh well, you can do anything, or did you give any sort of leeway other than creatively we want this to be, the bar is high? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
what was the line? What hooked them and what made them inspired them to think, right, I'm going to revamp this song or I'm going to do a cover? Because the covers to me, like I like to listen blind on a first listen. And to me, I didn't on a first listen, when you run through and you're doing a thing, I didn't notice the covers just because they'd really made them their own. And I feel like um, James Ford did this insane job of actually stringing it together to make it sonically fit when you've got people like everyone from King Cruel to Olivia Rodrigo. To me, they're so wildly different. So, yeah, was there a line in like the initial email, the initial branch out that gave them a little summary of what it is you wanted?
The initial reach out was just like the urgency of the situation, like we as a charity are facing. So the volume of children affected by conflict has sort of doubled in the last 30 years, 520 million now, and kind of that urgency of action. But then it was a very conscious decision. As soon as James Ford said, yes, I want to get involved, basically just hand over the creative keys to the castle to him, because who better is going to piece an album together? So some of those tracks on there, he'd been in discussions around ideas for songs for a period of months, just exchanging bits, and this could work and that could work. Some he had things in mind, like the Arctic Monkeys track, Opening Night, is something they started around the AM sessions 13 years ago. And I think it was a mixture of his and Al's idea through WhatsApp conversations, like, why don't we try and revisit that song and finish it? Because this could be the right thing. James has worked on the last couple of Depeche well, a couple of Depeche records and Memento Mori, and he reached out to them, but they came with that idea of the track and that cover of Universal Soldier, which is a song very much centered around conflict. That idea to tap into that came from them. And then they just give it this, like you say, the full Depeche works, like taking a classic, a folk song from the early 60s and just going full on like, industrial Depeche on it. It's amazing. The covers are real high points, I think. I mean, there's a guy called Toby L. You probably know, runs Transgressive Records. He works hand in hand with.
We love Toby.
We love Toby. He's an absolute hero. Him and I were talking loads through the process, and he told me that Beth Gibbons was doing Sunday Morning by Velvet Underground, and I adore Portishead. I think Beth's voice is, one of the voices of our generation.
I can't lie. I feel like her voice on this record is a real standout for me. I had to pause and was like, right, exactly who is this right now? It's amazing.
I really think it's a high point. Yeah, just finishing side A, and he told me it was Sunday Morning by Velvet Underground, track I love. He told me that ages ago, and then I had to wait until we got the audio stream because it was a song Beth and James had worked on, because James did her last solo record, and they just recorded it, just the two of them, I think, in his studio, and then they were just sort of finishing it off. But so I had this like period of 2.5 months maybe to wait to hear it until I got the audio, and it just blew my mind. It's just so beautiful. So I think the covers are a real highlight, which isn't always, cover can be the easy option sometimes, but I think every artist has really kind of embraced it.
Yeah, I have to give a big shout outs to Empire Records in St Albans for their question and kicking things off before we dive further in. I feel like, for a bit of context as well, for anyone who doesn't know, obviously it's for an amazing cause, but the inspiration for the record was the 1995 landmark original album Help. Why now? And why building on that? Can you talk to me a bit about that, like the discussions around it and why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. So that first album, Help, came in 95. War Child was founded in 93. And I think in the preceding 2 years, it was set up by two filmmakers. They were making a documentary about a Croatian painter. And then civil war broke out in the former Yugoslavia. And they just came back really affected by the violence, particularly towards children, and knew they wanted to do something, but they didn't know what they wanted to do. And they had some famous friends, including Brian Eno's wife, Anthea. They got a lot of musicians involved, and they tried things that didn't work. And then this record came along, Help, which was inspired by John Lennon's approach to recording Instant Karma, that songs should be about what's happening right now. So it should be, I think he said it should be recorded for breakfast, no, written for breakfast, recorded for lunch, and released for dinner, like straight out. So recorded in a single day in 95 and in the shops 5 days later, which was a feat of
I'm
logistics
sorry, that is
and engineering.
unbelievable.
Yeah, even now in the days of, pushing sound on a Wi-Fi, it feels extravagant, but in days of tapes and, private jets and ferries and all sorts, it was remarkable. And what it did was it got perfect snapshot of 95, like Britpop in the broader sense, Oasis and Blur on the record when they hated each other's guts. You also had Radiohead and Manics, but you also had like some of the trip hop stuff, so Massive Attack, you had Orbital, KLF, Nana Cherry, some really sonically interesting British pop rather than Britpop artists. And
The Oasis Blur, getting them on the same record, is that not like the most amazing coming together in spite of like their warring without being too on the nose? But do you know what I mean? Like it's perfect for the cause because it's
yeah,
coming together for support of the most amazing cause. And in one day, again, still blows my mind.
Yeah, that was the PR objective at the time. Tony Crean, he's the guy who sort of put it together and was at Go Discs. He was always said they always felt if they could get Oasis and Blur on, so because it is every week in the NME, it was right off the back of Country House versus Roll With It, and they literally hated each other's guts. So that was like, like you say, just like coming together for a cause, and
In the vicinity of one day as well. So they knew that they were in the same space in the same day.
yeah, and in the same articles, and there is an old Gallagher quote somewhere saying we would never appear with them, but it's for War Child, so we had to, and yeah, but it suddenly meant that the charity like had scale, like it could actually make effect, and that's to why now, I don't know, it's hard. I think there's been a desire to do another body of work for about 10 years at War Child, and it's sometimes hard to bottle lightning because things sometimes happen when they're supposed to. And we felt with the 30th anniversary of that record falling in last September 2025, and the kind of movement towards just more violence around the world, sort of looking, in the last 5 years, you've seen war in Ukraine, war in Gaza, and continued violence across the Middle East, like protracted conflicts continuing in places like Syria and Yemen. Like Sudan is the largest humanitarian crisis on the world right now. It was like there was a feeling we had from like just talking to artists and labels and different music bodies that the apathy was going. People wanted to stand up and do something, but sometimes didn't know how. And we just felt at this moment now, with the situation the world's in, and with the 30th anniversary of the first record, it was the time to just have a go at creating the spiritual successor to it.
Mm. I um I know that I know that when I read that it was done in a week, I already thought to read back and think that the first one was done in a day still is crazy. But it was still crazy to me that you got them all in one week in Abbey Road Studios. Um, I know that you said that you were there for the recording. Were you there for all of the recording all week?
I was there for most of it. Yeah, we did a lot of it happened in 3 days. I think 9 or 10 tracks got put down. And one day we had 4 studios in operation. I went back for the Olivia Rodrigo session, and then Last Dinner Party did theirs in Angel Studios. So I was there for that. I missed the Cameron Winter one, which I was gutted about because I'm a massive fan, but it sort of just dropped in super last minute, and he did that just in the front room at Abbey Road, just him and cello. It was very like, bang, can you like arrange it for tomorrow morning? He's in, away you go. But yeah, it was amazing logistical feat. We worked very like wildlife management, who managed Arctic Monkeys and Fontaines and K Tempest on the record, kind of took this project and managed it for us, which is amazing. And there's an amazing, lovely guy called Marcus, who's a production manager for Fontaines DC. He did a lot of the logistics of coordinating all those artists being in and out of the studios at that time, and he did a Herculean feat in hand with Toby actually, and James and a lot of other amazing people. But yeah, it was an incredible atmosphere, like a real life privilege to be around it because it's a celebratory record. In many ways, people are not, there's not that pressure on of like do your own commercial records. It's all for a good cause. So that creates a sort of communal spirit around things. And the creative behind everything is Jonathan Glazer's and Mika Lewis's creative vision is this album is for children, so it should be delivered through the eyes of children. So each session was remotely filmed, and then 2 8 or 9 year olds from a local school went into the session with video cameras, handheld cameras, and film bits. And
That's
it
so
just
good.
it was so good, and it just like nothing dispels tension in the air. Like I don't know, an 8 year old doing a handstand or falling over or picking their nose or not knowing who Damon Albarn is, or it's just like it created just a really harmonious environment. And like on the third day, I think every studio in operation was for War Child, so everyone coming in and out of the room, and everyone was in and out of each other's sessions as well, which was lovely. And then you're in the canteen, and it's sort of like a roll call of the great and good of the music industry, which is really powerful.
I can see some questions coming in. We'll get to those shortly, but I keep them coming as well. Um, I understand that this filming, the documentation from the kids, will be a sort of behind the scenes documentary. Is that right?
Well, yeah, Jonathan's got a kind of vision of what he'd like, what he'd like to create. He finds his story in the edit is his sort of method. So we're not quite sure yet. We've kind of got everything we had, and there's a super powerful video that came out on Friday last week that is because the Academy Film sent teams out to Yemen and Gaza and Sudan and Ukraine, and they gave children in those war-torn countries handheld cameras just to film themselves being children, and they produced this just over 3.5 minute music video to accompany Olivia Rodrigo's The Book of Love, and it's I don't know. I've been at War Child 10 years. It's the most powerful thing I've seen. It's such a beautiful, because children are just being children, and childhood should be universal. It's sometimes the where you're born or the route your government takes that can change a situation.
Mm.
And these kids are just being kids. They're running around, they're climbing things, they're playing hide and seek. But the kind of backdrop is, the kids in Gaza. It's obviously Gaza because it's rubble, and it's yeah, really, really powerful. So we're not quite sure what's going to happen with the longer form stuff and Jonathan's vision, but we're excited to find out.
Were there any standout moments from behind the scenes that you can tell us about for whatever reason? Ones that might have been caught on camera, but maybe not. But like maybe in the recording or something that made it in, or yeah, any standout moments for you from behind the scenes?
There were loads actually. Like that collaborative spirit was a massive thing, and I think we really saw that on the Damon Albarn track. So he wrote a song called Flags for this, and he came to the session I think with the piano refrain, and he had worked the night before with Grian Chatton and Kay Tempest to write the lyrics in a very collaborative fashion, and then he came with a bunch of players, which were Say from Gorillaz and Johnny Marr and Aid Utley from Portishead and Femi from Ezra on drums, and they kind of built the song together over 2 days, which was lovely to see it evolve. And then there was two children's choirs were bussed in one day because he felt he needed that, and then there was at the very end this call for an adult choir, which meant everyone who was in the studios at that day for War Child kind of just jumped on at the end. So you had like Black Country New Road and English Teacher and Pulp all just piling into the studio, and then a load of other musicians had sort of turned up who were in the neighborhood, like Carl Barrett and Declan McKenna and some members of Let's See Grandma and Marika Hackman. And it just, it's just like that was like a really lovely illustration of like just people coming together for purpose.
Good little transgressive crew
Yeah,
there as
yeah.
well.
Toby's handiwork was felt on that one for sure.
Well, look, I actually feel like we're gonna hit the questions in just a sec, but obviously, a lot of the things you mentioned, like people creating contacts and just being creative along the way, that when a project like this pulls together, someone like James Ford, who kind of is the linchpin because he's worked with these people like along the way. He knows certain projects and things like that. Shout out to producers who are behind the scenes all the time because, yeah, I know a few budding and sometimes it feels like it's hard work at the beginning. But all these early moments that you make with these new artists later on could deliver something as iconic as this. Um, we have Louis, who's got involved on the Record Club's Instagram. He says, was it difficult keeping the project a secret?
Yes. Yeah, it was because there was a bit of like, obviously, it was known through the industry because a lot of artists and teams were contacted, not just to be on it, but to support it in various ways. Um, and there was a real worry around the Arctic Monkeys recording because it's the first time they've been in the studio together for 3.5 years. And there was a bit of a, because we recorded end of November and then obviously released, well, announced in January, but there was worry that would leak, and it did do a bit of a round on the Reddit threads a little bit
Mm.
before, Arctic Monkeys. The rumor was last song, they're doing this for the album from an industry insider, and it'll be the last thing they ever do. So there was, yeah, because originally we'd wanted to hit like September 9th and record and try and put it out as soon as possible, much like the first one, but we had James's health was a real obstacle. James has been battling leukemia for over a year now, so he wasn't able to be physically present, and we moved our dates back to kind of make sure we could work with James because he was so integral to the narrative.
What a commitment. Wow.
I mean, he's still going through that battle now. He was remote. He was there. He was ahead on a laptop for all the sessions, talking to the artists directly into their cans through his laptop. And at some points, he was having a blood transfusion while he was recording the Olivia Rodrigo. But to that point about producers, what it meant was there was just this cast of the most incredible production people coming together to support him. People like
Mm.
Marcus Longy and Catherine Marks and David Wrench and Animesh and Lauren and so many people. And it was what it talked to them after. They found it very empowering to because it's quite a solo pursuit, but to come together as a collective and to all help out and support James to kind of deliver this vision while he's going through what he's going through was a really powerful, powerful thing.
It's going to make me emotional. I am. Angel on the Record Club's Instagram says, firstly, love the record and also the Brit Suite gigs for War Child 2. I've been lucky enough to be involved in some of those in the past. She says that she was at the Robbie one in Manchester and loved it. What is your favourite track, Rich? And how else can we support the work of War Child?
Oh, that's
Very great question, Angel.
yeah, yeah. I've been asked that favorite track once a few times. That's really challenging because I really love it as a body of work. I mean, I love the Cameron Winter track, Warning, just because he's sort of just gone somewhere really creatively challenging with it. It's very, very intense. It's very aggressive. It sounds like a warning, but it's really musically interesting.
Mm.
And, I love his vocal delivery. I just think it's, amazing. So I've got a real affinity for that. And Fontaine's cover of Black Boys and Mopeds just gets me every time. I'm a big Sinead fan, and obviously them paying tribute to her, who was on the first record. And they've just done a really powerful arrangement of it as well. And people can get involved and support. Like you can get on the website. We currently, we've got a live Middle East emergency appeal, responding to sort of events over the last week or so, with violence escalating there. So visit warchild.org.uk or just buy this record, stream this record. I love the message that choosing to play this on your Spotify Premium or Apple Music account as opposed to something else supports children around the world. So just listen to it, really.
Huge. Thank you, Angel. And we have Reese on the Record Club's Facebook who says, what artist on the record were you most blown away with seeing them in the studio?
That's a really good one. I wasn't in the studio for all of it. I mean, Pulp Heroes of mine. And I remember buying his and hers when it first came out in my early teens. And Jarvis is such a larger than life presence. It was like really amazing just to see them at work in Studio 3. That was really powerful. So yeah, that had a real resonance for me.
I know we've already done the call to action, how you can get involved. So obviously stream, get the record, all of the above. Keep an eye out for documentary or behind the scenes or whatever stuff is going to come because it's very exciting. I know we spoke about this briefly off air, but is there going to be any sort of event? Are you thinking about it? What do you reckon, Rich? Because I would love to see some of these artists in action.
No, it's literally like a roll call of my favorite artists. We've talked about it. Obviously, it's 23 groups of artists, well, actually more. It's over 30. But we'd love to try and do something. We're just kind of trying to figure out how and when and what that would look like, because 23 artists each doing a track each is a kind of difficult logistical feat to pull off. But then do you take certain elements and who you include and who you don't include? And a lot of people are on the road and recording. But we'd love to get into it. We feel so deeply proud of this project that that's some sort of live way to, bring it to the public in that kind of interactive forum would be really, really amazing.
Yeah. I remember you also said there's some great imagery that goes along with it. So maybe some sort of like exhibition as well. Like I imagine you have photographers left, right, and center in there.
Yeah, we were really lucky. There was a guy called Lawrence Watson actually who photographed the original album back in '95. He actually cut short his trip with Oasis on their world tour. He came back the night before the last show in Brazil. He'd seen the previous night to shoot for us. So he's taken some really lovely images, and a lot of other photographers were in and around the building. And because it's obviously the studio backdrop, but you've got the children there as well. It's quite visually interesting. So yeah, it would be lovely to do something around that because you can see the sort of spirit and joy of it through people's faces, which is
Yeah, of
nice.
course. Well, that is all we have time for today. So obviously we've loved having Rich Clarke from War Child join us. And you lot at home, make sure to get your hands on a physical copy of Help 2. You will be helping out for an amazing, amazing cause, and you'll get a brilliant record as well. Now this episode is over. Obviously, pick one up from your local record store, support them too. I'm also excited to announce that the winner of this week's Bowers and Wilkins wireless headphones prize is Angel, who is on the Record Club's Instagram. Please slide into the Record Club's DMs. We'll get those headphones to you. My name is Jess Izzat. Obviously, thank you everyone for joining us at home and sending in your questions. This and all previous episodes are available to watch back on Spotify or YouTube. But for now, Rich, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Lovely to talk to you, Jess, and thanks, for giving us the platform to talk about this record and War Child.
Amazing.